minutes or so, I would guess. And you'll get a perspective from a 28-year-old's first time to Africa about what's going on with the mission work. And then my wife's going to follow him and tell you a little bit about her work and her ministry there, which is totally different than mine. And then after that, I will see how much time's left and give you what the Lord's laid on my heart. So Stephen, if you'd come on up.
I'm actually 29, by the way. But in all fairness, I don't know how old you are either, so. This is my first time to Africa. My dad's been going to Africa for about 15 or 16 years now, and I've seen the pictures and seen the music, all that. And actually going for the first time was completely different than I expected. There wasn't really much that, I guess, surprised me that I haven't seen in pictures or stuff like that. But the way I compared it was, growing up, I played baseball. I watched baseball on TV. But the first time I went to an Indians game, it's mind-blowing when you're there for the first time as a kid. When I actually got to go to Africa and see all the things I've seen in the pictures, especially the music. The music, Greg, you would love the music. The first picture is of just our game drive, but the next one is a picture of, that's me going up the mountain with a guy named Wilkes. He was in he qualified for the Olympics, so this guy, he can really move up a mountain. And it's a big mountain we were going up. And we climbed this mountain. That's actually a lady with her, she's just carrying those sticks down the mountain. Like that's not even necessarily a big pile of them. But we're climbing up the mountain, and it took us about an hour, 4 or 5 miles, I would guess, I'm not sure. But it was a very rough trip on the edge of cliffs, between rocks, over ditches, through little villages. But when we got up there and we got into the church, there's a little church up there. And when we were in the church, they start their music, and I've heard the music in church, and my dad's played it for us and stuff like that. But you actually see the women walking in doing the music, and they're like scuffing their feet because they don't have any instruments. So that's their instruments, is their feet. They're scuffing their feet on the ground, and then they start clapping, and then they start kind of dancing, and then the music starts, and they start singing. And the whole time I'm sitting there, and the experience of it was so much different than actually just listening or watching from here. That was probably the most, that was probably the thing that surprised me the most, is how different it was to actually be there. And I don't know what kind of opportunities anybody in here will have at any point in their life to go on a missions trip, but just, I believe it was 15 years ago when I was in Moldova. My dad sent me over there, and I didn't even want to go back then. I was 15 years old, and he sent me over there by myself, with my sister, my little sister. And I remember talking to Eric, and he goes, "Yeah, your dad doesn't think you can make it in Africa, but you should just come over with me sometime." And way back then, I wanted to go to Africa. But, you get to be, 19, 20 years old, you get in your 20s, you get married, got a job, actual responsibilities, not just being in high school. And I didn't think I'd ever have an opportunity to go to Africa, 10 years ago. And if anybody in here gets an opportunity to go on a missions trip, I highly encourage it, because it's a lot different than when you see a missionary come in here and stand up and show you the pictures and talk about it. It's a totally different experience. And for an entire week, that's what the entire week is like. And that's probably the main thing I want to tell everybody, is if you get that opportunity at some time, whether you know when it's coming or not, to jump on it and go for it. Because I've been on quite a few missions trips now, and I'm very glad I've got to go, and blessed I've been able to go on these trips. And then really the other thing was the witnessing what missions work really is firsthand, and when you actually get to see the people that you affect. It's different seeing a group of people on a picture on a slideshow. It's a lot different seeing that than it is actually sitting there, talking with them, working with them, being in an actual church on top of a mountain way in the middle of Africa that very few people ever get to go to. So actually getting to experience that and see what missions really is about is more than just watching a missionary come up here. And I've talked to quite a few missionaries about when they're in the United States, and a lot of them tend to say the same sort of thing. And they definitely wouldn't come up here and say it, but telling you that, the worst part is just going from church to church and, trying to raise money and stuff. A lot of them just want to get over there and do the work that they know they're called to do. And so when you see the hearts of these missionaries and you see the work that's actually done, it'll change your perspective in ways you can't even understand when it comes to missions work. When I first went over to Moldova as a kid, like I didn't truly appreciate it, even though I was over there for 3 months, I think 3 months and then 2 months the second time I went. I didn't truly appreciate it because I was 15 years old the first time. I mean, I look at 15-year-olds now and I'm like, they look like children to me now, but now that I'm 29 and I got to go for the first time, it's totally different than what my dad's always told me about, even though it's exactly the same. Actually getting to witness it was great. I hope to go back someday, and if I go back, I do want to go to the lower Shiri region of that country, which is what typically if my dad's talking about a story where it's really rough or he got malaria or something like that, that's the area that it's in. We were staying with Eric Chapman, and when we were at his house, like he actually cooked us some real good food, and it was just a lot of normal American food. I think there's another slide up there of that's actually my trip up the mountain. That's just a picture I took from the top, not even the top of the mountain, just one of the pictures I took going up this mountain to the church. But the picture after that is an actual meal we had inside of a guy's house, Mr. Magada, who I've heard about for 15 years, but his wife cooked us that meal. The fish in there, the only place you can get it in the world is in Malawi, and it was really, really good. And when we were going over there, I actually asked Eric Chapman, I told him, I said, man, tell Mrs. Magada I want a grasshopper salad. And the grasshoppers weren't in season, so I was kind of disappointed about that. And then actually, I think I was talking to my brother-in-law, Seth, and he said, well, you can always cook up some grasshoppers here. I'm like, it's weird if you cook them here, but if you have them in Africa, it's their type of food. But we got to go to restaurants, we got to have all their food, we got to see their culture. The one thing that I don't think the pictures really show is, like, you see the houses and they look different than ours, but they're made of mud bricks. And I didn't realize that during the rainy season in that country, the rain will come and the mud bricks, if you don't got a lot of money, are held together with mud, like just mortar that's made of mud. And a lot of people in that country will just be sitting in their house during the rainy season, their houses just collapse on them. And I think that was actually the original point of going to Africa, was all these churches that were over there, the roofs that are put on a lot of times are to keep those church buildings from, falling over on the people. They build their own churches over there, the bricks and stuff, and then Eric typically gives them some money for the cement and stuff so that they're not just put together with mud. And when you actually get to see these people and you realize they're sitting in a church that, could fall over on top of them, it gives you a different perspective, because nobody in here is worried about this church falling on top of them. And if somebody invited you to a church and you said, yeah, bring your kids, it might fall down, you're probably not going to go. And just looking at the roofs that are on those churches and how they're put together to keep the people in these churches safe is something that, even though I guess I knew what was going on, I didn't really connect it to actual people, like real people. And when you go there and you see them singing and you're talking to them and you're communicating a lot, not necessarily always talking, but just communicating with them, because you don't always speak the same language, it really does change your perspective on the missions. And that's the things I want to tell you about this. Mom, you ready?
Okay, before we change the slide, what Stephen didn't mention was the day that we went over to the Magadas for this meal, the electricity went out. Now, Mrs. Magada is fortunate enough to have a gas stove, or is it electric? Gas. But she couldn't cook in her kitchen that day because there was no electricity. So the champo, the fish, she cooked on an open fire in their backyard. So this whole meal was made outside in their backyard over an open fire. So that was kind of and thankfully the electricity came on before we ate, and so we were able to see it. On the next slide, a couple of things that I did. One of the biggest thing I did was I spent time with Stephanie, and I packed. She was getting ready for. They're currently in Moldova right now, but they'll be coming back about 3 days before they start their next medical mission. So we spent every day, from supper until lunch, then we'd break, and then from lunch until dinner, and we would pack medicine for the medical clinic. So I know I pack tens of thousands of pills into little bags so that when they go, the doctor it's easy for him to give out the medicine. My ministry there is a little bit different. If you do any research, one reason a lot of missionaries do not make it on the field is sometimes because of the wife. It's very stressful, especially on a woman. And women, you know, if you're like me, we need that female friendship. And one thing that a lot of missionary women don't have is that female friendship. When groups come over, construction groups, they're all made up of men. I'd say probably 98% of the time there's a group that comes over, it's all men. So here's Stephanie taking care of all these men. And she lacks that intimate friendship. So when I'm there just to spend time with her and minister to her and give her that and accept her for who she is. So many times I think people don't realize that when missionaries are judged constantly, whether it's, if they come in here, there are churches where if they saw Stephanie wear a pair of pants, they would drop their support. If their kids would be out of line and they think that they can't control them, they might lose their support. There's a lot of things. She has to be careful of everything she does. Even now, their kids are married and living on their own, and if somebody sees something on social media that, they don't like the dress that their daughter is wearing, it could affect their support. Even when groups go over, there are certain groups, way she dresses, the way she talks, what she fixes, how she interacts with some of the people, she's constantly being judged. So my job is just to go and just to be a friend. And we need to really learn that when these missionary wives come in, not just Stephanie, she's a veteran, but especially these young missionaries when they come in, learn to accept them for who they are. It's a hard thing to be able to maintain contact with your family. When Stephanie and them left, that was, 23 years ago, I think they left for Moldova. And, the communication is much different now. And there they were, they took their 4 children over to Moldova and had very little contact. Even now, they have 6 grandkids, and a lot of their relationship with their grandkids is over FaceTime or Skype. So that's another thing that, these missionary wives have to deal with. Their girls are having children and they're in another country. So we need to support the missionaries' wives, and that's kind of my job there. But I also like to say that because of the opportunities I've had chances to work with some children. I've had chances to work with some of the ladies. And I want to sing a song. And even though this will kind of take you back to the 1980s when it came out, it's a message that still holds true today. And before Mark comes up, I'd like to sing "People Need the Lord." Every day they pass me by, I can see it in their eyes. Empty people filled with care, headed who knows where. On they go through private pain, living fear to fear. Laughter hides their silent cries, only Jesus hears. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. At the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. people need the Lord. We are called to take His light to a world where wrong seems right. What would be too great a cost for sharing life with one who's lost? Through His love, our hearts can feel all the grief they bear. They must hear the words of life only we can share. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. At the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. When will we realize that we must give our lives for people need the Lord. People need the Lord.
Okay, I got 20 minutes or 18 minutes. Preacher's real picky about what time we get done on for Sunday school, and so I got to make sure I follow that real tight. Now, if you could pull up the next picture, what I want to do is I want to give you an idea of the actual work we did this time, and then I have a short lesson I want to give you, and it all wraps together. The church has been so generous to me over the years. You guys support my ministry like you wouldn't believe. I think it was last time or the time before the church gathered money and I bought generator for the mission work, so I didn't have to hand cut everything. And since then, we sold the one big one and bought two smaller ones, so we have them in two locations, and it's working great, which came in handy this time because the electricity went out one day. And it can go out for a day or two and come back on. And boy, when you're working, you do not want to be using a handsaw on this old lumber. And so anyway, we're using that generator again this year, and that was such a blessing. Other than I have to keep changing the plugs out because half the plugs over there are South American plugs, which are like 3 round rods, and the other ones are Europeans, which are different. And so you're rewiring whether you're plugged into an actual outlet or compared to plugging into the generator. But the church has supported me greatly. I'm not a monthly support like most of our missionaries. Our foreign missionaries are supported, I think it's $1,500 a year. But the church is so gracious to me. I would speculate I get almost $5,000 a year from the church for my projects, which I want to thank you all for. Many of you gave to them before I left. And the board gave a little extra into it this time so we could cover most of the cost of the roof. I thought the roof was going to be $5,000. It turned out to be $7,000. That'd have been bad. But then someone else in the church stepped up and has donated the remaining $2,000 to pay the rest of that roof. And so that very much blesses me, and I appreciate the support of the church, and I don't take that lightly. I tell you, it's great to come to a church that stands behind the work that I do around the world, so thank you. But as you see right there, there's a picture of the outlets. The one on the one side is my electrical wiring, the other is the African engineering. They just shove 2 wires in the hole. There's a couple pieces of wood to hold it in place, and they're running their equipment off that way. That way they don't have to change plugs back and forth. They just have bare wires they shove in the holes. And it's that kind of stuff that we obviously would never do in the United States that we get to live with over there and just kind of chuckle and move on. And then on the next picture, we're framing the roof at this point. The house was about 37 feet by 54 feet, and there was 3 of us Americans working on it, and then we had an African crew working with us. And let's see, the roof, from the peak of that roof to the floor, was about 21 or 22 feet. And you just don't want to fall. You don't want to go to their medical things in that situation. You got to be very careful. So we actually work a lot slower when I'm there than when I'm in the United States, just for safety purposes. And then on the next picture, that's the 3 of us that went working there. This is Stephen on this side. The man on this side is Tim. I work with him at the business where I work. His dad and me were business partners for many years. He's a good Christian young man. He's early young man. He's in his 30s now. I remember him literally when he was that big. I've known his dad since '82, so he was probably 5 years old the first time I saw him. And now he can work me under the table. But when I first trained him as a carpenter, the first 2 days he worked with me, he swung a hammer and beat his fingers till they bled both days. And but I tell you, he has heart, and he's a good Christian man, and now he's just an amazing carpenter, and he did an amazing job for us, and served the Lord. It's just great to see him and watch him and Stephen there for the first time experiencing. Tim's favorite thing on the job site was learning to communicate with the African carpenters without being able to speak their language. We had 3 African carpenters show up. They had 1 hammer between them, and it was a metal rod with a big old metal head, and they sure liked using our hammers better than their own. Just not beating your arm up. If you know much about swinging a hammer, if you have just a stiff metal rod, when you hit that, it just vibrates your arm like crazy. And we were driving 4, 5, and 6-inch nails. We drove almost no 4-inch nails. Most were 5 and 6-inch big monster nails. And I'll tell you what, that can beat you to death in a day's time. And then the next picture here shows us starting to put the metal on. I'll tell you what, they can take a 2-foot level and a string and make that 37-foot by 54-foot roof perfectly straight, plumb, beautiful. And there's not one piece of lumber on there the same size as any other piece of lumber. None of them are straight. They're so wet that sometimes when you hit them, the water will splash on you. Nothing's killing dry. And them trees were probably cut down a matter of weeks or a couple months before we actually got there. And every crooked, different size board in that roof is just beautiful straight when they're done. They're amazing carpenters. I saw him when I'm sitting there, and I called back to the United States. I got a hold of my boss, or actually I emailed him and said, okay, I need this on the computer through a CAD program. Give me the lengths, angles, and measurements on these rafters so I can just cut them before I get in the air. That carpenter took a nail in the dirt and started scratching his numbers out, and he would come up with the same numbers I would. He was I mean, they may seem simple, but don't underestimate some of their intelligence. Some of them are kind of, well, not all there, but some are very intelligent. And you get both ends of the spectrum. And then the next picture here, we're actually moving along pretty nicely. Tim, at the top of the roof there, is afraid of heights, which is odd, seeing he's about 21 feet in the air there. But sometimes we overcome our own personal desires and thoughts to do what needs to be done, especially when it comes to the Lord's work. His mother was a little stressed over this picture, as you can imagine. And then your next picture, we're finally finishing it up. And I'll tell you what, we pushed it to the end. We had 5 minutes of daylight left on the last day when we got that last piece of roof put in place. And so it is getting dark there, but I'll tell you what, we finished it up and we're able to get everything done we needed to. So that was good. And then our next picture is actually the back of the house. You can the porch is kind of on the this side over here. It's going to be a back porch, and it is a mud brick house, but we used mortar. There's a concrete ring beam going around there that actually ties the whole building together, and then we'll cover the outside with concrete. This house will not be falling down. This house is built with American money, and so we're able to throw the extra concrete in, even though it's mud bricks. There's going to be Josh and his wife, and I believe 5 children living in this house, and it's being built specifically for them so they can take over as Eric's getting older. So this is important to transition. So the ministry that this church has been investing money in for years will continue. And what is our next picture here? This is the picture. First of all, you got a picture of the kids. This is us walking down the street. We had a downtime when we were waiting on the Africans to get some stuff done, so I thought, okay, I'm going to take the boys out for a walk so they can experience parts of Africa. And so we're just walking down the street, and the little kids are running up to you, wanting to talk to you, play with you, just because you're white. And you're an American, well, just white, and not American, just white. And they want to try their English out on you, and they want to slap five. And it's an amazing experience to have. And so that's what we're doing there. And that Bible verse is not the one I'm actually going to use today. I was laying in bed this morning, and I had a general idea what I was going to be talking about. And the Lord laid something different on my heart this morning. And it's a topic that you'll never hear the pastor speak on. He hates this topic. As I was laying in bed, I'm like, oh, Lord, please tell me you're kidding. I don't want to speak on this topic. The topic, obviously, is money. Nobody wants to hear about money. Well, money is so important for what we do overseas. Money is so important in our everyday life. And I want to give you some basic principles. And these aren't going to be harsh principles. I'm not going to be beating on you. But in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, it says this. It says in verse number 6, it says, "But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully." You're going to reap what you sow. It was last Sunday, we were having family dinner at the house, and my son's there, and his daughter and family, and I found out they hadn't planted their garden this year. I love their garden. I love their green beans. I love fresh green beans. And they hadn't got the garden in. He's been very busy. He's got a website business he's been working on. It's huge. I gave him an idea for a meme. 2 or 3 million people have seen that meme that I came up with the idea for, and he put the pictures to. Our daughter's wedding the other day, a month ago, there was a short video from there. 300,000? 650,000 people have seen the video from my daughter's wedding. So he's pretty in tune with the internet stuff and being able to build his website and actually making some money at it, plus holding down a job and having a family. Well, I'm there and I found out he hasn't planted his garden yet, and I want the green beans. So I'm like, Katie, we're coming over tomorrow. We're going to plant some green beans. And Stephen agreed to rototill it for us, and he rototilled it up, and it had been rototilled before, and I planted my green beans. I wanted green beans. I planted, 8 rows, and they're about 20 or 30 foot long rows. I'm going to have me a lot of green beans. I love my green beans. You know, if we want financial blessings from the Lord, you cannot get financial blessings from the Lord if you don't follow his principles. It just can't happen. And so, you know, it says if you sow sparingly, you're going to reap sparingly. Now, am I going to preach to you and teach you today that, you know, name it and claim it like the Pentecostals and, you know, sow seeds and God's going to make you rich? Oh, heavens, no. Actually, when we read the rest of this chapter, some verses in here, you're going to find something a little bit different than that get-rich-quick scheme, because that's not what it's about. It's not about us getting rich. It's not about that at all. The Lord wants us to give. In verse 7 it says, "Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver." We have to purpose it in our heart what we're going to give. Now, me and my wife, we've sat down, we know what we're going to give. I got up this morning, we both got paid this week, so I didn't have to think about it. We know percentage-wise what we're going to give. I went in, I pulled up our paychecks, I said, okay, here's the check. We've purposed that in our heart. That's our tithe. We're going to give that tithe. And God says, as a man purposeth in his heart therewith to give. You are to purpose in your heart to give. Giving is not an option. If you don't give to the Lord, you're living outside of his will. I'm not going to tell you what to give. I'm not going to tell you what percentage to give. A lot will tell you that 10% is what you should give. You'd have to go into the Old Testament and do some research. Whatever it is, whatever the Lord lays on your heart, you need to give. Because if you sow sparingly, you're going to reap sparingly. And I don't want to reap sparingly. I would like to reap bountifully. But what am I saying? Am I going to get rich? Oh, sorry, people, that's not how the rest of these verses go. Verse number 8, "And God is able to make all grace abound towards you." When I think of grace, I look at grace, G-R-A-C-E, God's riches at Christ's expense. God's riches. He's able to make all grace abound to you, that ye always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. His blessing is that we may abound to every good work. It's not that we can move into a bigger house. It's not that we can drive a nicer car. And I drive nice cars and I got a nice house. But that's not why God blessed me. That's not why God blesses you. He doesn't give us this to make us rich, that we may abound to every good work. So that when a missionary stands up here and I come to you and I say, you know what, I'm going to put a roof on a house in Africa, and this man is working on his doctorate, and he is going to be out there and he's going to teach 150 pastors to preach his word better in 150 villages on every Sunday morning, that you can sit there and say, man, now that's my retirement plan. I'm going to give to that project. And I'm going to give to that, and you know my reward is going to be great. Not that I'm going to be getting rich, but then I have affected 150 village churches in Africa. What an awesome opportunity for your investment. So when I get up here and I tell you, and these other missionaries get up and they say, man, if you give to this project, you'll have a worldwide impact. It really is there. Man, that's exciting to me. That may abound to every good work. Verse number 10, it says, now he that ministereth seed to the sower. Okay, who's giving seed to the sower? People like you giving money to the missionary that's out there doing the sowing, okay? He that ministers seed to the sower, minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, there's multiplication here, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Not increase your bank account. Increase the fruits of your righteousness. Our righteous living. The fruits of our righteous living will people knowing the gospel, hearing the word of God, getting saved, and living for Him. Now that is what we're going to get when we give to the Lord. Now the Lord does bless us financially. Believe me, as Stephen was telling you, he lives in Africa. He's in buildings that fall down and kill people. And yes, it happens. I've known people when I was in a church one time and they said, Mark, can you pray for this lady here? Her house collapsed last night, only a wall or two, because of the rains. Can you pray for her? I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's not a prayer I pray very often in America. Lord help this family. Their house collapsed last night. Well, you know what? We are blessed financially of the Lord, but that increase the fruits of your righteousness. Man, we can do so much for the Lord. The opportunity is out there. We can serve the Lord in this area. Now, I want to tell you a real story. This is a real man that actually has part in our ministry in Moldova and Malawi. He's a very wealthy man. I mean, his money's beyond our money. We don't even look at his money. His one business he sold, round numbers, $500 million. There's not a person in this room that hasn't seen his invention work. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm sworn to secrecy. He doesn't want to be known. But I'm telling you what, he's a mega rich man. $500 million. And every one of you have seen his product in use. It's like, wow, that guy's got some money. He just sold another business, I think, within the last year. When he found out George Soros bought the business, he was a little upset. He said he wouldn't have sold it to George Soros, being the, Christian hater, ultra-liberal. But he sold that business for $500 million also. $500 million round numbers. He sold $1 billion. Him and his business partner have sold $1 billion worth of businesses. He owns multiple other businesses, and he's in the process of an invention right now. And by the way, I don't know his name. I only know his inventions and his businesses and stuff because it is meant to be kept quiet. And because he doesn't want to be inundated with stuff. Good Christian man. And his invention he's working on now that they're trying to finalize the final details on will affect every person's life in this room. Chances are it'll affect every person's life in some degree around the entire world. He's got an invention coming that I'm like, I don't think so. But you know what? He's lived a life. I mean, he had the fruits of his life are there. So I sit there and think, wow, this guy's, He was talking to Eric, though, and he said, Eric, he said, man, he says, I will admit to you, I got to confess, I've kind of started pampering myself. He's a big guy, 6 foot something, big monster guy. And he said, I fly first class now because I'm so big, it's a little uncomfortable back in coach. And this guy's got money, and he's feeling bad because he's living the big life flying in first class when he could buy his own airplanes and fly around the world. Well, I'll tell you what, the type of life he lived, his children didn't know they were rich when they were growing up. They had no idea. They had no idea. They didn't know they had a house, from my understanding, and I'm not at all 100% sure, it was very similar to what our pastor had before he sold his big house, which is a nice house. But it ain't mega rich, gated community, tennis clubs kind of a house. He had his kids living in that kind of, now they weren't hurting for anything. No, they had money. Their bills were paid. When he would take Eric out to eat, he took him to a pizza shop. Now, he liked it. Have you ever heard of Uno Pizza? I'm not a big fan. He would take him to Uno Pizza. Not no big fancy steakhouse. And he would have him over to his house. One time he was at Eric's house. for his daughter's birthday. This man's daughter was about 10 or 12 years old, and Eric's there for the birthday, and she went up to Eric and she said, "Mr. Chapman, this year for my birthday, I really didn't want or need anything, so I asked all my family members to give me cash." And she said, "I got like $200 or $300 cash." And she took, just give me chills, she took her $200 or $300 cash, handed it to Eric Chapman and said, "I want kids to go to summer camp in your camps in Moldova." Man, she sent 20 or 30 kids to summer camp for a week to hear about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now that's a rich man. Now his kids, now that they've grown, know that dad's rich, and I'm going to guess they've got the benefits of dad's money. And sometimes we think, "Oh, I can't give a lot, Mark." By the way, this gentleman paid for most of the house that we built. This church paid for the roof, but he's paying, from what I understand, for the rest of the house. And he has a heart for missions. Now, not all of us could give a lot. Some people, there was one young lady that used to go to this church. She used to be a little selfish young lady, to be honest with you. She found out we were going, handed Ellen $100. Now, you sit there and say, "Well, that ain't nothing compared to his big money." This gentleman, I know he wrote checks over $100,000 for the camp ministries in Moldova, and I'm sure his daughter at the time didn't know that. But she gave what she had. Now, her $200 or $300 was pretty small compared to Daddy's $100,000 checks that he writes for the ministry. Well, that's the way it is for us people. Maybe we aren't going to write the big dollar checks because we ain't got them. But you know what? Our Heavenly Father wants us to give, just like that man wanted his daughter to give, to learn to give, not so that she wouldn't have birthday presents, but that so she would live a better, more fulfilled life. She will be a happier, better person, learning to give her birthday money to kids to go to camp in a third world country. Well, it's second world now. And that's like us, everyone in this room. We got a rich daddy behind the scenes, our Heavenly Father. He's got the big money. He can handle this without us. But it is a privilege for every one of us here today to give what the Lord has given to us and give it back to Him so that the gospel can go out and we can have a part in serving the Lord around the world. So I would ask you to do this. As the Bible verse says here today, "But every man and woman, according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver." God wants us to be a cheerful giver. Be happy about it. Get excited about it. When you write your tithe check to this church, be excited about it. Realize our pastors are working. You have air conditioning. You have a beautiful building. Our pastor is serving people out there in need, from their weddings to their funerals to the children's births. You have a part of that. When you give, and we haven't talked about Faith Promise in this church for 10, 12 years. When you give to the missionaries, and our missionaries need the money, give to them and get excited about what's going on around the world. It is a privilege for us to put that money in that offering plate. Watch what the Lord is doing and get excited about it, because God loveth a cheerful giver. I'm going to pray, and then we are going to have, about a 15-minute break before our next service. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this word you've given to us today. I thank you for this lesson you laid on my heart this morning, as much as no one wants to get up and talk about money. But I thank you for the promises, and I thank you for how that when we give, not grudgingly, but of a cheerful heart, that righteousness can abound and we can do your work around the world. We'd ask, Lord, that you would bless every penny that comes into this church, that it would be spent wisely, and that we would further your gospel locally and around the world. And I thank you for every church member that gives here, Lord, and even the ones that don't. We'd ask you to lay on their heart that they will learn to follow your principles and give to you happily. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh.